So zebra mussels and their close cousin, the quagga mussel, they are not native to North America or to the Great Lakes. They were introduced into the Great Lakes sometime around 1986, maybe a bit earlier than that. And the way they were introduced was from the discharge of ballast water from ships transiting the Atlantic Ocean from Eurasia to North America. That's actually a very common way that a number of problematic non-native invasive species were introduced into the Great Lakes. And zebra mussels may not look like much when you look at them. They're about the size of your thumbnail. They have black and white stripes like a zebra. That's where you get the name. Quagga is actually a mule-like animal, so that's where quagga mussel got its name. But the problem is they are incredibly prolific little mollusks. They're a bivalve. That means they've got two shells that open and close. And they have a unique ability that's unlike any native mussels in North America. And that is they have the ability to produce these sticky threads called Mussel threads that allow them to attach to any hard object. So zebra mussels can grow on rocks, they can grow on plants, they can clog water intakes, they can clog boat motors, they can grow on each other to form these giant, ball-like colonies. And because of this ability to grow on basically any hard object, they're considered to be biofouling organisms. That means that they're just living organisms that are able to cause problems on human infrastructure. So when the zebra mussels first invaded the Great Lakes, their population numbers were small, but within a couple of years they'd spread throughout all of the Great Lakes and they started doing damage. They started clogging water intakes. There was a famous example of the zebra mussels clogging the water intake for the city of Monroe, Michigan in 1989. So there were so many zebra mussels that were growing on this intake that the city no longer had a water supply. So you can imagine how difficult it would be to be without water for a period of 3 days. And then the municipalities around the Great Lakes, they had to learn how to deal with zebra mussels and quagga mussels. And one of the things they did was spend a lot of money to use a chemical treatment to prevent the zebra mussels from clogging the water intakes. Or in some cases, they would send scuba divers down to physically scoop them off. So the zebra mussels, they're amazing. So the first thing that we noticed was that they were clogging up, infrastructure and causing problems like that. But that was really just the tip of the iceberg. When the zebra mussels would die off, they would wash up on shore and they would start to, rot and decay. They became a stinky mess and nuisance. And then people didn't want to visit the beaches. Sometimes they would grow on the rocks right along our rocky beaches, and they were small and had a very sharp shell. And bathers would cut their hands and cut their feet on the zebra mussels. So now you have a stinky nuisance, you've got a physical hazard to people's well-being, and that made people not want to visit the beaches of Erie, Pennsylvania and other bathing beaches in the Great Lakes. So now you have a tourism impact and an industrial impact. But it didn't end there. These little bivalves, the size of your thumbnail, the way they make their living is they filter suspended food material, organic material, out of the water column. And they're actually very efficient biological filters. In fact, in the late 1980s, when their populations were really exploding in the Great Lakes, there were so many zebra mussels in the western part of Lake Erie that they were able to filter all of the water through the water column. They were able to filter the entire western basin of Lake Erie in a period of 3 days, which is incredible. So what you end up having is really clear water, which is exciting at first, until you realize that all the contaminants and all the gunk that was in the water was now trapped inside the zebra mussels. And the water was so clear that the sun was able to shine down to depths in the lake where it never could before, and that allowed nuisance growths of other plants and algae like this stuff called Cladophora. So basically there was this ecological cascade, there were this ecological problems that were completely unimagined as a result of these very small but very important non-native mussels.
Right, those